Hello everyone. Today I'll talk about Indian Forest Service. Many of you may know about it, some of you may not. But I'll tell you today about three important things. Firstly, what is the service? Secondly, what is the job profile? Thirdly, uh, about the exam. So, what is the exam pattern? How it is conducted? And finally, about plan of action and many important strategic questions that aspirants may have. Okay. Um, okay, let's begin. So about Indian Forest Service, as you may know, it is one of the all India services at the apex level. So after three services, that is Indian Administrative Service, Indian Police Service, and Indian Forest Service, are three all India services that are currently regulated under All India Services Act. Okay, so under this service, as you know, you are recruited by the central government, but you work under state government. And yes, let me first talk about the work profile, then I'll come to how the training happens. So just to get you acquainted with this service, what exactly do the forest officers do, at which level they are recruited, how is their career progression happening, and what is there in the training. And at the end of this, I hope that you'll be excited about Indian Forest Service and consider it as a worthy option when you are preparing for civil services examination as well. And there are people who prepare for Indian Forest Service exam as well. I hope they will get enthused by the kind of work forest officers have, kind of future they have, and I hope this video may help them in uh, aligning their strategy or aligning their plan of action. Okay, so work profile. So main work of this Indian Forest Service officer is to implement National Forest Policy. Currently, the National Forest Policy 1988 is under operation, and the draft of 2018 Forest Policy we have all seen, but the final National Forest Policy may come in this year or the next, but very soon. So, main objective or the aim of Forest Service officer is to implement this policy. So, IFS officers are largely independent of district administration. They look after the forest that are there in the districts or the area, and they have administrative, judicial, as well as law and order powers within their jurisdiction. So they have administrative powers, judicial powers, financial powers in their domain, and as well as law and order duties also they adhere to. So what all these can be? So it can be about management of national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, then tiger reserves, etc. Towards that, there can be patrolling, enforcement of laws, implementing policies, tribal development policies, illegal hunting, felling. You have to control that. Okay. Apart from that, there can be management of manpower, management of urban forestry, social forestry, zoos, botanical gardens for ex situ conservation. All these things are under Forest Service officer. Tribal development is there, involving tribals in joint forest management operations. So IFS officers also have quasi-judicial powers under Indian Forest Act. They act as collectors under Public Premises Act. So basically, they have judicial powers as well. You can say that it is the best of both IAS and IPS. So they have law and order power as well. They have administrative powers as well. Beyond that, they have judicial powers as well. Okay, so it's very diverse service, and you can do many things while working as Indian Forest Service officer. Okay, urban forestry, social forestry, farm forestry, all these are very important parts of forestry and are very much in vogue, because see, we are living in the age of climate change, and we have international obligations. We want to reduce our carbon footprint. We want to get to net zero by 2070, as the Honorable Prime Minister has declared at COP26. So towards all this, forests are one of the best ways to go. We want to so afforestation programs, reforestation programs, urban forestry, social forestry, all these things are important. We want to enrich the forest, we want to manage the forest, we want to make sure that whatever rich biodiversity we have is getting maintained. All this work is work of IFS officer who is at the helm of all this. All the top posts at the state level when it comes to forest are held by forest officers. So before career progression, let me go to the training aspect of it, just to get you more interested and acquainted with it. So as you may know about it, training of IFS officers happens at Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy, which is in Dehradun, inside the campus of FRI, Forest Research Institute. Before training here, forest officers along with officers of other services who are inducted via civil services examination are sent to Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, or Labasna as we know it, for foundation course. So after about 2 to 3 months of foundation course, they come to Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy, and training here goes for about 16.5 months, give or take. Due to COVID, there is some plus minus here, but this is on an average 16.5 month training program. Okay, and in this training, you are trained extensively inside in various domains of forestry. You learn in very detail and minute detail, and at the master's level of forestry. Okay, so it is equivalent to that. So there are other things. So there are British time hostels there, because these are all British time buildings. So you stay in those hostels that were barracks at the time of World War II. So training includes physical fitness, various sports, and things like horse riding, swimming, and I don't know if you have seen it or not, but Indian Military Academy and in Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy are side by side. So many of these activities are conducted inside Indian Military Academy, which has a huge campus. So weapons training happens at Indian Military Academy, horse riding, swimming, those things happen at Indian Military Academy. You as a forest officer trainee, you anyway have access to that academy. Then there are multiple things in training as well, because you will be having judicial powers. Moot court sessions will be conducted. You will be trained in forensic training at National Police Academy. So you will be going to Labasna, you will be going to IGNFA, you will be going to NPA. So you will have varied experiences. You will be taken to various multiple field tours in most pristine forests of India. Okay, you will be participating in various national and international conferences related to forestry, or domains related to forestry. For example, there was COP 14 that happened in Delhi of UNCCD, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, as you know. So there forest officers participated. Then there are of course cultural activities, study tours. Then there are foreign tours as well, to know about how forestry is conducted in other countries, what are the practices that are undertaken there. So that is also there in training. So after training and work profile, let me tell you about career progression of these officers. So first 2 years, of course, there is training at IGNFA. Then while in state, you are firstly appointed as Assistant Conservator of Forest, or ACF rank, for 2-3 years. Then you are getting promoted to Deputy Conservator of Forest, DFO or DCO as we call it. For there you spend most of your career. It is similar to District Magistrate of District Collector at the district level. So for DFO is amongst the 5 top officers inside the district, along with District Collector, Superintendent of Police, District Judge, and Chief Medical Officer of District. So at that rank, you spend 12 to 13 years of your life. Then you are promoted to Conservator of Forest, Chief Conservator of Forest, and in many states this is the top position, but in bigger state you will have even higher positions like PCCF, or Principal Chief Conservator of Forest, and this PCCF is the highest post IFS officer can reach in the state. And one of the PCCFs is appointed as Head of Forest Forces, like the DGP of Police, and that is at the state level. And at the central level, there is Assistant Inspector General of Forest, Deputy Inspector General of Forest, Inspector General of Forest, Additional Director General of Forest, and finally the Director General of Forest, who is equivalent to Special Secretary to the Government of India, or in particular Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So this is the career progression in general. Apart from it, forest officers can get deputation to other ministries and departments. They can get deputed to other central public service enterprises like ONGC, BHEL. Second highest number of joint secretaries are there from Indian Forest Service after IAS, of course. And they can be sent to deputation to head NGOs like traffic and etc. Okay. So overall, there are various career prospects, and this service is, I believe, in the ascendancy, and there are a lot more forest officers at the joint secretary level currently within states and even at the central level, and there is nothing to prevent forest officers from being appointed as secretaries. So we may even see that in near future. Okay. So perks and privileges. So like all India services, Indian Forest Service has exclusive perks and privileges. So salary, residence, other conditions of service are same as other All India Service officers like IAS and IPS. You will get same salary, you will get residence, which is official residence at the district level or at the city level. Okay. You will get the drivers and the servants as and when applicable. So you will get access to pristine forest inaccessible to others. This is again a unique perk of this service. You can choose to remain closer to nature if you want. You can go into the forest, you can stay at those beautiful forest guest houses. Many of those you might have seen in photographs. Okay. You can experience wildlife at the close quarters. You can pursue hobbies like wildlife photography. So if you want, you can follow this Parveen Kaswan sir. He's an IFoS officer of Assam cadre. I follow him on Instagram. He captures beautiful pictures of wildlife. So you can follow him to see what I mean. Again, one more thing I can recall is that there was one forest officer whose interview I was reading, and or rather it was interviewed by the daughter of the forest service officer, and she was telling about how she got to play with tiger cubs, etc. when she was a little girl. Okay, so this is again a unique experience, I would say, that forest officers can get. Then in general, people say that forest service officers have better work-life balance compared to IAS and IPS, because IAS and IPS has a lot of work to do. They are under a lot of pressure. There are a lot of stakeholders always around IAS and IPS officers. So IFS officers have better work-life balance. Okay, and as one of the All India services, forest service officers also get called on by the president and the vice president or the prime minister. Okay, that is also one of the perks, you can say. Not all other services get called on like this. So I hope you have better clarity about service now. See, main thing to note here is that about what kind of work forest officers do. So this is the main thing I wanted to convey. And you can further read about what they do on the field by reading interviews of forest service officers. You can read about their answers on platforms like Quora or YouTube. Okay. But this is in general. I want to tell about services and perks and privileges. Now let's come to main thing about the exam, which is of more relevance to us right now. Okay. So firstly, eligibility. Who is eligible to write this exam? See, in notification itself, UPSC has mentioned that bachelor's degree with at least one of the subjects, namely animal husbandry, veterinary science, botany, etc., etc. So basically, these are all science-based subjects with the unusual absence of doctors. So MBBS people are not allowed, but other science-based degrees, statistics, zoology, physics, mathematics, chemistry, etc., etc., they are all allowed to give this examination. So you can see that level of competition is automatically very less here, because many of the civil services examination candidates are not even allowed to sit for this exam. So those who are from arts or commerce background, I'm talking about, or even those who are from medical background, they are also not allowed to give exam. So basically this is only for science graduates and engineering graduates exam. So if you are one of those, you can seriously consider about this. Now, number of attempts, there are 6 attempts for unreserved and EWS category, 9 for OBCs, and I believe there is no limit on attempts for other categories. Okay. And exam pattern, as you know, there is prelims, there is mains, and there is interview. 3 stages exam is conducted for, and the prelims is common between civil service examination and the forest service examination. And this is the thing that makes forest service examination very challenging, because cutoff of forest service examination is at least 10 to 15 marks higher for forest service examination. Now let me show you as well. See, this is for forest service examination 2020. Cutoff for prelim is 10110. So 110.88 is prelims cutoff. Say in the same year, cutoff for civil service examination was, I believe, 95, if I am not wrong. So, but thereabouts. So you can see the 15 marks difference here. You see minimum qualifying mark 116. The same 2019 examination, the same year, civil service examination prelim cutoff was 98. So you can see there is gap of 18 marks. Okay. So it is substantially more tough to qualify for mains of forest service examination compared to civil service examination, and this has become one of the crucial turning points in the conduction of forest service examination. And this is the thing why you can think about it if you are good at prelims, because you see, before 2013, only people from forest background, those who were BSc or MSc forestry or PhD in forestry, only they could give this exam, and only they were more interested. But since the prelim has been combined, all you have to do is just choose to give forest service examination pre at the same time. It is just one click, and you can also give the prelim. And since then, it has changed drastically. People from all background have been clearing the prelims. So as a consequence of that, difficulty of the mains of forest service examination has reduced drastically, especially when it comes to optional like forestry. If you look at the earlier papers of forestry, they were very specific questions because they were aimed at forest graduates. But now, since everybody is qualifying, and since everybody is taking that optional, the difficulty of that optional has reduced substantially, and it has changed the dynamic of this examination entirely. Okay, so yes, prelims, mains, and interview. So as you know, the prelims is common and cutoff is substantially higher. Okay, now how to prepare for prelims? I mean, there is no short answer to it. Maybe you can join Santosh sir's current affair program, or maybe if he permits, I'll make another video about how to strategize for prelims when it comes to forest service examination. Then coming to mains, see, mains has 6 papers. One is GK, one is English, and there are 2 optionals. Optional paper 1, optional paper 2. You can call it optional 1, and there is optional 2. Basically, you have to choose 2 optionals here. That is again one of the major differentiating points from civil service examination. Incidentally, for which also you had to choose 2 optionals in earlier times, but not since 2013. And point to note here is that this English paper is scoring, so marks will be calculated. In civil service examination, English paper is qualifying, here it is scoring, so it creates huge difference. And let me tell you, there are people who get 180 marks in English, and there are people who get 80 marks in English, and those 100 marks differentiation you just simply cannot bridge. So this is one subject which you cannot ignore in this forest service examination mains. I'll talk about it in a separate video about what to do about English, or even if time permits, even in this video I'll mention about English. Okay, and finally there is interview stage. So okay, mains, this 6 paper combined, it is 1400 marks, and interview is worth 300 marks. So total the exam is out of 1700 marks, when merit list is prepared. And marks are added from this and from this. In civil service examination, the mains is of 1750 marks if you remember, and interview is out of 275. So you can see that in weightage of interview is much higher here in forest service examination. So interview matters a lot. That's also one of the highlights of this examination. So that's about examination pattern. Now let me come to third and most important part about approach or strategy or planning. So plan of action. So important questions that aspirants face, or rather I have also faced in the past. I'll talk about that and I'll give you my opinion. Please accept it if you agree with it, or if this situation is similar that I'm talking about. If you have any specific question beyond this, you can reach out and we can talk about it. Okay, so why forest services? Should it be your plan A or plan B? Now, it really depends on who you are and what stage of your preparation or life in general you are at. Okay, so there are people for whom it is a plan A. I have met people who are very passionate about forest services. So they want to stay close to nature. They want to make difference there only. They want to work in field. They want to work in forest. And for them, it is no question about it. It is their plan A. But for them, the difficulty is again about prelims, and their competition will be with civil service aspirants who will be writing very good answers in GK paper, who will be writing very good answers in optional paper because they have prepared for it intensively for civil service examination. For them, preparation will be very different, and for civil service aspirant, preparation will be very different. Now, should it be your plan B? Again, for them, it will be plan A. For other people, it is also plan A. So, I have met RBI grade B officers or IRS officers who want to give forest examination and work in forest services. Why? Because see, there are lots and lots of things that forest service offers you. Apart from being all India services, it is a field job. It is one of the biggest perks of this service that you may not realize. And some people, like even myself, we would prefer field jobs over desk jobs. So that's where forest services is a very unique opportunity. For some, rather than working in the private sector, they would want to work in the government sector. For them, forest service is a better job rather than earning huge money in the private sector. Again, so it depends whether it should be plan A or plan B. But if it is your plan A, let me assure you that it is one of the wonderful services and there is no issue in it. So yes, I mean there are some trade-offs when it comes to when you compare forest service with IAS IPS. But if you are someone who can live with it, if you are someone who wants to remain close to the nature, do substantial work for developmental aspects, as well as want to have a field job, this forest services is for you. And now, should it be plan B? And here I would say definitely. I mean, there is no harm in having forest service as plan B, because this is an amazing service. It is an all India service. So, I mean, if you are, let's say, in your second or third attempt of CSE and you get into forest services, you can always opt for extraordinary leave. You can always opt for even more leave than that and keep studying for civil service examination, which may be your ultimate goal or dream or whatever. And having it as a plan B is perfectly all right if you can pull that off, because forest service examination is not as easy as it seems at the face value. Yes, there is a little bit of less competition, but let me assure you, whatever competition is there, it is fierce. So, and the examination pattern is different. You have to prepare 2 optionals. You have to study for English, and you don't have a lot of time between civil service main examination and forest service main examination, and that is one of the crucial constraints when it comes to clearing forest service examination. And I'll even show you the cutoffs of the last year and previous year. Okay, so 2019 and 20, and then you will realize it is not as easy as it seems. So should it be your plan B? I mean, there is no harm if you can pull it off. Great. I mean, again, as I already talked about, having it as plan B is great, provided you are good at prelims, because That will be one of the biggest hurdles in clearing forest service examination, because cutoffs are substantially high, and if you look at the prelims paper that are coming in the recent years, it is becoming more and more difficult to get predictably higher marks. So 110 plus marks in prelims is very good, and certainly gives an edge in clearing forest service examination. But for securing that kind of marks, your preparation needs to go that much higher. You need to practice that much. You need to strategize about what to attempt, when to attempt. You need to be better at making deductions. Okay, so there are a lot of factors that are coming in prelims now. So that's the hurdle in having it as a plan B. But if you can pull that off, if you can prepare one or two extra optionals, as the case may be, I mean, great. I mean, there is just no harm in having it as a backup option, because it is a great service. It will give you peace of mind. It will give you substantial confidence of having cleared UPSC's, probably second most sought after examination. So yes, if you want to have that plan B, great. No, go ahead with it. So trade-offs with IAS and IPS. I mean, there's nothing much to really explain. You know about it, okay? So there is lesser prestige or recognition or bhokal, as we say in Hindi, compared to IAS IPS. I mean, yes, even though forest service officers are all India service officers, they do not have the same kind of prestige as IAS IPS officers do have, primarily because they do not have that kind of public interface or the scale of public interface that IAS or IPS people have. IAS and IPS interacts with hundreds and thousands and probably millions of people over their careers, and that's why they have that kind of prestige or powers or recognition in the society. Forest service officer, subset of people who you interact with is much smaller. That's why this factor is little bit lesser. And yes, so similarly, I mean, after UPSC result declaration, you won't become an overnight sensation. Smaller number of media person people will be rushing to you. On joining the field, you won't be chairing the district level meetings. District magistrate will be chairing that, or you will not be cabinet secretary or chief secretary, which are positions reserved for IAS officers. As of now, at least, we don't know what happens 20, 30 years down the line when you will be at that seniority. So you don't know that. But yeah, but even being IAS officer doesn't ensure that you will be cabinet secretary or the chief secretary, because those are political appointments. So you don't get to live in Labasna, which is the most prestigious institute. But you will be living in beautiful campus of FRI. You will anyway be going to Labasna. You'll be going to FRI. There will be sports meets and cultural exchanges. Everything will be there. Okay. Your workplace is forest. You can miss hustle bustle of cities if you are a city person or somebody who likes to go for clubbing and partying, etc. That won't happen much here. But anyway, after you become IAS or IPS, there will be constraints on that as well. I mean, because you have certain image to maintain, right? So but here you get to live in the close quarters to nature, as I already said. Your bungalow may not be biggest in the city. It may belong to SP or the DM, but it will be still beautiful. But you will get access to most beautiful rest houses, etc., etc. See, if one or more of these are deal breaker for you, then you may consider. But in my opinion, these are just small trade-offs when it comes to kind of job you get to do. It's just my opinion again. You can decide for yourself. So you will not have connection with millions of people, but your subset will be very small. But you will be working for tribals who are the most deprived, backward people of India. You will be working for their development, their empowerment. So that it will give you same kind of satisfaction as working for millions of poor people as well. So who should choose forest services? I mean, definitely those who like to be close to nature. If you are somebody who loves only city life and don't really want to go off grid, or or don't want to go into remote places or into the nature, then you may want to opt for some other job. But if you are somebody who loves to close being nature, I mean, there is just no question about it. You should opt for forest services. But even if you are a city person, if you ever visited a forest, or if you have ever gone closer to nature, you will feel different kind of bliss. I mean, this is a job you can really get into over time. So even if you are that kind of person right now, people do change and habits do change, priorities do change. So consider it, okay? Those who prefer field job or desk job. So I know people who are IRS officers who are opting for forest services, who are giving the examination. I know people who have RBI grade B officers on and still giving forest service examination. But there is opposite is also true. Huh? I mean, I know a person who has cleared both forest service examination and services examination and got into IRS. So he chose IRS. So that is again a personal call, but yeah, you can make that call. And finally, those who have exhausted or about to exhaust CSE attempts, so yeah, you should definitely go for forest service examination, because this is a great service, an all India service. And even though you had a dream of clearing CSE, this is equally good. Okay. So again, another important question is, when should you attempt this examination? Remembering prelims as the biggest hurdle. So see, if there is temptation that you should be attempting from first attempt itself, but the problem in this is, one, clearing prelims with that many marks in first attempt itself is difficult, and second, uh, studying one or two more optionals, because here you have to choose two optionals. If one of those optionals is common between CSE and forest services means, fine. But if it is not, you have to study two optionals in 40 to 60 days, which is virtually not impossible, but very, very difficult to really score good marks. And this is not examination to be taken so lightly. It requires efforts. It is a competitive examination at the end of the day. So from first attempt, you can try, if you can manage studying two or three optional subjects, and you are comfortable in prelims and you are so comfortable that you are sure that you will get 110 plus marks easily, and you are scoring 130 140 plus marks in mocks continuously, and you are comfortable in optionals. If you are somebody like that, then you can definitely go for it, if you are confident about prelims. And if you are, or again, if you are dedicated forest aspirant, then I mean, there's nothing really for me to talk about. Okay. Secondly is, decide the number of attempts you are giving for CSE mains. Okay. So if you have decided, let's say I'll give 2 or 3 dedicated attempts for CSE mains, give them. Give only CSE attempts, because that is probably your dream. Like most of us, I mean, forest service is something we get to know about when we start preparing for CSE. So if CSE was your dream, and it is going to be your dream, and if you want to give 2-3 full-fledged attempt for CSE, do that. But after that, okay, when you are giving your 4th attempt, then think about forest services as well as a backup option which will give you peace of mind and which will give you solid uh, job as well at the same time. You can still prepare for CSE, there is no harm in it, but at that time you may consider it as a backup option, as a plan B, as we talked about. Okay. And thirdly, at what age you are starting your CSE preparation about. If you are starting at, let's say, 26 and you have 6 attempts, then just fill up the form. I mean, at the age of 32, you will anyway be disqualified, and there is no point in keeping those extra attempts. What you will do with it? So just then you can fill up the form and see where it goes. Okay. But yeah, I mean, see, you have 6 attempts for CSE and 6 for forest. So in total you have 12 attempts. Okay, so you can in theory get give 12 prelims, etc. But that's not often possible. Don't consider forest as a side exam per se. So just for the sake of it, don't just fill up the form. Fill up the form of forest examination only if you are even a bit serious about it, because you will regret it towards the later attempts if it comes to that. And you all know that UPSC CSE is such an examination that you can never be sure about it. So it is better to give attempt only when you are sure about joining forest services, or at least ready to prepare for it. Just for the sake of it, don't fill up the form. Keep your attempts in your hand. You can later decide if you want to give it or not. So let's say if your 5 attempts get over and still you have 3-4 attempts left for forest services, you can keep giving it while doing something else. But if you don't, then you are forced to do something else, and that something else may not be as rewarding for you as forest services will be, because at the end of the day this is an all India service, remember. So rather than running behind other exams after exhausting civil services and forest services attempt, if you have forest services attempt in your hand, you can still prepare very well for it and qualify here with little bit more ease compared to civil services civil services examination, because the competition is lesser, as one of the reasons I already said. Second reason is here, that absentee in the main examination. That is the second reason. I'll come to it. So yes, the next question is about choice of optionals. So you have 2 optionals, okay. So that is the challenge here. One has to choose 2 optionals here. And if you are from science background and if you have one optional in CSE which is in common with forest, it is the best case scenario. For example, in my case, I have mathematics as optional in CSE and forest, both. It makes my job much easier when it comes to preparation for forest services examination, because I have already prepared this optional. I just have to prepare for one extra optional, which I have chosen to be forestry. And the problem is, between this mains and this mains, you have 40 to 60 day gap, and covering 2 optionals in that 40 to 60 day gap along with English, along with GK, is a humongous challenge. So it will be best if you have one optional in common. But many a times we have seen aspirants from science background choosing other options like PSI or sociology or anthro or etc. So then if you want to go for forest services, you have to prepare for 2 extra optionals, because those optionals are not offered in forest services mains examination. Then which 2 optionals should you choose? There are many popular optionals. You can choose between forestry, geology, agriculture. These are popular optionals which have defined small syllabus. You can cover in smaller time. You can understand it better. These are simple subjects comparatively. They don't have huge syllabus like maths or physics or something like that. So you can choose these subjects. Plus they are quite scoring as well. So geology has been very scoring last year for some reason. People have 280 marks like that out of 400, while in mathematics scoring 230, 240 marks has become a big challenge. So there are some pros and cons to it. You can choose one or more among these optionals. These are very popular. Again, use if you are familiar with those who have taken these optional, talk to them about these optional, then come to conclusion. But if you have no optional in common, most popular choice is forestry plus geology. Just I'm informing you. One of the reasons is, of course, because they are scoring and they have smaller syllabus which you can cover in very quick time. But in this time, covering both optionals is not easy. So if you are taking these 2 as optionals, then it would be better if you prepare one of them beforehand. Otherwise, I would say it is a huge challenge. Fine. Then let's come to next question. When to begin preparation? If one option is common between CSE and IFoS, you can prepare one optional in 40 days. I mean, that is still a challenge, but not an impossible challenge. It can be done, and many people do it, okay? And I have also done it, so I can say that if one option is common, you can start preparation after civil services mains. But again, civil services main examination drains you, so you have to pick yourself up and keep studying till forest mains. So that is there. If no optional is common, I would recommend that at least cover one optional, preferably beforehand, before even civil services pre-examination, right? Because after if you are a CSE aspirant, you will have around 3 months between pre and mains and around 40 days or 60 days between CSE mains and forest mains. So in these 5 months, you will have only 2 or less than 2 months for 2 optionals which are dedicated to forest, which is not possible very easily. So it would be better if you cover one optional even before this 5 months period. Okay. So that is what I would recommend. And if you are only forest aspirant, then you will have 5 months after prelims before forest mains. So you will have ample time to cover 2 optionals. So that can be done. But if you are only forest optional, I would recommend you start studying for GK and English beforehand. Okay, because you will be competing with CSE aspirants there who will be writing very good answers in GK and English and even some of the optionals. Okay, so your competition is with them. Then you have to prepare more for GK and English. That's what I would recommend to those who are only forest aspirants. Now let me talk about level of competition. So generally there are 90 to 110 seats per year. Fortunately for next year, that is Forest Service Examination 2022, there are 151 seats. So you have much better chance of clearing the examination. So if you are not planning to give this year's examination, please consider it, because there are more seats and we don't know what may happen next year. So around 1100 to 1200 people write mains, but anywhere between 20 to 40% people are absent in mains, and that is an average. Last year the number was much higher, so it was 40% or so. This year I have seen it is about 25%. But see, this absentee is not really impacting the cutoffs, because those who are serious about Forest Service Examination, those who have studied, they will come to examination. So absentee is really not material when it comes to you clearing the examination if you are serious enough. But there is this absentee. People who are writing, who are not from science background, they are not your competitors here. So see, out of 1100, 1200, so around 700 to 800 people will write mains, and out of that around 250 people, 200 to 250 people will be appearing for interview. So level of competition is comparatively lesser than civil services examination, but that does not mean it is not fierce. It is also fierce here. It is a competitive examination, and people or aspirants do prepare quite seriously for this examination. But the point to note here is that if you work hard, a little bit harder, not even as hard as for CSE mains, if you work hard enough, you can clear this examination, because it has a bit less competition, I would say. And you can see that from the cutoffs as well. So I have just attached this from official cutoff PDF. So you see, in main examination, cutoff minimum qualifying marks for unreserved was 633, final was 875. What is the difference you can see here? 242. Can you go get these marks in interview? No, theoretically impossible. So just clearing mains that is not enough to secure a rank. So you have to clear mains by substantial distance. That is, you should get at least around 700 marks here to get into guild list with some ease. And to get 700 marks, there are English, GK, and one optional 2. How many marks you can score here? You yourself can see, but in English, one can score about 140 to 150. In GK, one should ideally score from 110 to 130. 130 is good, 140 is great. But if you are targeting 100 marks out of 250 in CSE, you should at least get 120 out of 300 in Forest Service Examination. And I have discussed strategy for GK paper in detail along with discussion of this year's GK paper, and I have included many practical strategies and practical difficulties which candidates face inside exam hall. So do check it out. And in optionals, ideally, I mean, you should score 230 plus. But if you score, 210 to 240, 210 to 240, you can get here. But scoring all these marks requires efforts. Scoring 140 marks in English is not as easy as it may seem. I think I'll just discuss how you can approach this English paper in 10 minutes, because I think we still have some time left. And in GK paper, it requires some again separate efforts, but it is comparatively easier for CSE aspirants because many of things we have already studied. And optionals, you need to score about 10 marks to get there comfortably, and I am talking about unreserved category. For other categories, it gets a little bit easier, but why become complacent? We'll try to score as many marks as we can there as well. But this is not a constant thing. This was 2020. If you look at 2019, the minimum qualifying marks are substantially higher. You see, this is 686. Here it was 633. So it depends on that year's marking. This 700 I was talking about, according to 2020 marking. If you look at 2019, you need to score even more. So it really depends on that year's marking. Seats are same. Seats here also 90, here also 90. So it depends. Okay, so strategy for GK, I have already discussed in separate video, but let me just mention it. There are 6 sections: history, economics, polity, geography, and disaster management, environment, agriculture, and science technology. So science technology is particularly different section here for forest, because questions that come here are quite unique and quite from basic sciences. You can refer to discussion video of this year's GK paper. Now, let me finally come to English paper.